By virtue of the word leadership, as I think about it, it entails that you lead, which means you move. You're not leading by sitting down, you're leading by mobility, which means you're taking a whole bunch of people from one place to the next. My idea of leadership is movement in a guided fashion from one level to the next level. That's what I think of leadership, just in a nutshell. I have a very fundamental belief that you cannot give anything that you do not have. That applies for virtually every aspect of life. It doesn't exclude leadership. When I was still a young, I think I was becoming an old medical officer, and I spent quite a lot of time doing counseling, family counseling, relationship counseling as well. And I've always said to people, you can't give love unless you have it. You can't give anything you don't have. And the same with leadership. You've got to be able to lead yourself, before you can lead anyone else. Otherwise, what are you doing? If you cannot lead yourself, you'll struggle to lead somebody else. If you cannot discipline yourself, you struggle to discipline somebody else. In order to empower myself as a leader, once I've acknowledged that, in order to be able to navigate the new terrain that I was now facing, I had to make certain that I keep on going back to that dictum. Make yourself a better leader. Empower yourself with knowledge, and empower yourself with knowledgeable people around. Surround yourself with knowledgeable people around you, which is critical as well. I had an opportunity to do that because I was part of the Goodyear family. Goodyear had this blank check for us as far as training facilities were concerned. And one of them was the WBS, Vets Business School. I could identify the areas where I was not strong in terms of the business I was going to get into. And I would enlist or enroll for some of those courses that the business school offered. I was also aware of areas that would not be offered by business school, but by other people within the industry and also within Goodyear Holdings itself. And I would seek those people out and call them in for sessions, a day or two sessions with me, so that I can just understand better the areas where I was working and what I needed to understand, what I needed to be sensitive to as a leader. And therefore, to date, I still believe that there is never the end of learning. There is never, I've now learned enough, I can now retire from learning. Every day of my life, coming to the studio, I look at you guys and I think, wow, I just thought I knew photography. There's still another chapter I need to learn offline, you know. I've always believed in that. You need to be continuously empowering yourself, continuously learning, because leadership cannot be the same. When we were young, we were told how leadership worked in the Bible. You know, Moses stood behind a burning bush, and that's how leadership started. It changes with time. Your audience changes all the time. Your attitude towards leadership has to be continuously being upgraded, and you've got to be upgrading yourself and empowering yourself all the time. I ran the tire business for about 2 years with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but I realized at the end of that period that my innovation capacity is getting stifled and I needed to move to a higher level. My immediate higher level was to move into mining, because mining at the time was beginning to make noises about their supply chain and how it must be properly empowered. In my quest to find the guys in the mining sector, I did my research around what they would require and what they would need vis-a-vis what I was able to provide. Being part of Goodyear Holdings was the big, what you call the earth-moving tire business. The common sense told me that if I sold 1,000 small tires, it would be a lot much better to sell one big one that would be about 300,000 rands each. And if I sold 4 of those, I actually made my annual income from selling a lot of thousands of little tires. So I wanted to see the mining companies. And that's when I was, I made my way to the first mining Indaba in Cape Town back in 2002 in an effort to improve and innovate my business from just being an ordinary tire selling franchise, but to supplying and servicing the mining sector. I met with people in Cape Town who were in exploration at the time, who were not very interesting to me because I didn't really want exploration people. I wanted people who had big open pits and driving big earth-moving trucks that I could do business with. So I was least interested in exploration at the time. I didn't understand it. It just happened that 2 of the people that I had met in the form of David Twist and Rudolph de Brain got interested in me as a person. Their follow-up meeting with me after Cape Town, actually the only follow-up meeting after seeing so many people and talking so much about my business, I only got 1 call-up. That's from the 2 of them. And in the beginning, it was very interesting. I was offended by their approach because they pretty much shut down what I was doing. After you've worked hard and impressed Goodyear Holdings and started this new business that you're supposed to start and fly with, they pretty much shut it down. They said, I'm wasting my talent, I'm wasting my energy, and I got a bigger gift than I'm giving myself credit for. So they introduced me to exploration, which I didn't understand and I didn't like. But I kept on having meetings with them up to a point where my wife, in her wisdom, decided, she asked me a very simple question. I was very challenged by that. And she said, okay, babes, now that you don't like what these guys are saying, but what is it that they're actually trying to introduce you to? What is this exploration? Then I began to learn about it, and I began to find it very interesting. So my next meeting with them within that space was actually quite different because I had now learned a little bit and researched a bit about exploration and actually wanted to be involved in a very small way in exploration. And then I began to find my conversation with them very attractive. That's how I began to be part of the exploration business. At that time, both of them were part of a group which was Platinum Exploration at the time. It was a company called Boynton Platinum Limited, which was the operating company for a Canadian company called Platmin. So I subsequently joined them, still doing a bit of work for the tire business, but subsequently sold the business. And I began to put both my feet in exploration after really understanding what it is and how much of a value add it can be if one does it properly. I was part of their business development leader. Again, they put me into the leadership position of something that I was not quite familiar with, and they thought I could do that. Because they trusted me to be able to do that, I did it. I did the business development for the company, and subsequently we were able to list that company on both the TSX and AIM on the same day in 2005. My first listing of any company or anything ever. Big milestone. When we listed the company, we listed, as I said, both AIM and TSX, and I sold my shareholding in that company. I had already been bitten by the bug of exploration. I understood exactly what goes on and how you can create value through exploration if you move it up the value curve. And now Boynton was listed and was preparing to build mines. And I did not think I was ready for waiting for projects to build the mine and then start seeing serious movement in 7-8 years again. So I wanted to go back to exploration. And that's when I decided to form the Sephaku Holdings as an exploration company. For that, we needed cash, which we had at the time, but I also needed skills. I then enlisted the skills of my 2 old friends again, Rudolph de Brain and David Twist. And let me tell you quickly why those guys are important to me. Because not only because they were friends of mine at the time, but David is a PhD in geology. Rudolph is an advocate who specialized in mineral law. And I'm the hunter, the entrepreneur and the hunter. So for me, it was a good synergy And something that I believe in very strongly, part of leadership, is that you also have to surround yourself with people who know what's going on in the area where you want to work. So once I enlisted their assistance and shared with them the vision of what I wanted to create, a multiple minerals exploration company, they then came on board and we did this together. We managed to get quite a couple of assets. Being part of business development directorship of Boynton, I was able to make contact with Anglo, with BHP, with Rio Tinto, and all the large companies because we had projects in similar areas. So I kind of knew what they were working on, and I kind of knew what kind of assets they had, which they were not going to use ever because they were not core. And I went on to consult with most of them to try and get those assets out, and I did fairly successfully did that. The limestone came out of that search. We now had in our basket limestone, fluorspar, coal, vanadium, tin, and a few other little unknowns. And we decided in order for us to see value, we needed to list this company. So we started preparing for listing of this company in 2008. And we did a few transactions in preparation for that. And late in 2008, the world collapsed. And that's when I learned the very important word, lemons. I didn't know what that meant before. It was never part of my vocabulary. All of a sudden, everywhere I went, trying to raise money for this new beautiful baby, we have been told about Lehman Brothers. Have you heard about the Lehman Brothers? Have you heard about the Lehman Brothers? And me wanting to know a bit more, I went and researched. And it actually became a revolutionary knowledge for me to understand how the world markets work, how someone in the United States can make a mess, and how that bank is interlinked so intricately to the rest of the world's economy. I didn't know that much then until 2008 when it happened. So the Lehman Brothers came down, but we had done so much work on our listing that in 2009, we took our company to the JSE main board as a mineral exploration company. For the record, it was only one of 5 listings for that year. Some people thought I was smoking something that was not completely legal. How do you list a company when there's only 5 of you, when the whole market is collapsing? But I believed in it. The team that I worked with believed in what we were doing, and we thought, this is a cycle, it'll come back. And it did. We then decide soon after listing, that the rest of the assets that we have are far down the curve of development, and we're going to focus a whole lot on the 2 that are up the curve, and that was limestone and fluorspar. So we unbundled the rest of them and kept the 2 in the listed company. And subsequently, we decided we're going to build a cement plant. Then we developed this limestone asset up to a point. And obviously, the call you make earlier that you're going to build a cement plant, but you don't actually know all the hoops and loops you need to jump before you get to that point. And we learn as we go. And somewhere down the line, we finished all the exploration work, all the modeling, and the call has been made to build a cement plant. We hadn't actually decided on that finally. I took a quick look around across the border, and I went to see with my 2 colleagues. We went to see one of the big suppliers, and we wanted to shortcut the process by saying, look, we can mine this for you, and we can supply you in your own cement plant for a fee. And the answer we got from there was, unless you can produce it at a cost less than what I'm producing it at right now, I have no interest in buying it. So we thought he was being nasty, so we go to try another one. And we got the same response. When I came back from there, and I called the meeting immediately and said, we're building a cement plant. Again, I was accused of smoking something not legal. Because did I know what the market was looking like? Did I know who were the players? Did I know? Everyone told us why it was going to be so difficult. But eventually the group was convinced we can do it. Let's just start. The interesting part was the way we started it. We thought, let's look for someone who knows how to move cement around, someone who's very well versed with logistics, And somebody in the room suggested one guy, his name was Peter, and he was working with World and somebody else, and so he knows logistics. Let's call him in. Very early after making that decision, we called Peter in to interview him to help us with the logistics of moving around cement. And as we were talking to Peter, he then laughs and he says, "But guys, do you know who I am?" And me with my big mouth is the first to say, "Yes, we know. You are Peter Fourie, yes. You are the guy with transport knowledge. You've got a small trucking company, but we hear you got a lot of experience with moving stuff around." And he says, "Yes, you're right about one thing. My name is Peter Fourie, but what you haven't said is that I'm ex-CEO of Lafarge." And everything changed right there. Because then I said to him, "Now that I know who I'm talking to, are you keen to do this with us?" And he says, "Yes, I am keen." "Why have you left Lafarge?" "Because I was working for Lafarge in Paris, in Africa first, then I went to Paris, and they wanted to move me to Brazil to run their Brazilian operations there, and my wife wouldn't let me. So I resigned from Lafarge and I stayed home for 5 years. That's why I had a transportation company, because they wouldn't let me do cement. I've now done my garden leave and I can do this." So I looked at him and I said to him, "You're hired." He came and sat this side and I can sit there. He began to ask me all the questions. "Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this?" I said, "No, I don't have any of that. Put it together." So the team pretty much fell in love with Peter. Peter is still our CEO of the cement division today. So he began to put the system together. And up to a certain point, we were looking for money. The money that we needed first was to order what we call long lead items for the cement plant. We didn't much, we needed about 350 million rands. And we went out on a road show to do this. I like telling this story, it's amazing. We're in Cape Town, we're raising capital, and at a certain point, we had already raised about 180 million. We're halfway through that, and it was a Tuesday. It was a Wednesday, and that's when I got, Tuesday, yes, I'm right, it was a Tuesday. That's when I got a call in Cape Town from my office saying someone from Nigeria wants to see me. He wants to talk to us about our cement plant. And as I was talking to my office, telling the office where to tell this guy from Nigeria to get off, because I'm busy in the middle of a road show and I've already got 180 million rands in the wallet, Peter happens to be walking past and he heard the name. And the name was Dangote. And he somehow took the phone away from me and said, "Are you talking to the office? Is that Dangote?" I said, "Yes." He said, "We will see him tomorrow." I said, "No, but we got a road show to finish." And he said, "We will see him tomorrow." So got offline and he said to me, "You don't know what you're talking about." I said, "You're damn right. Tell me, educate me a bit." He says, "The guy you just dismissed on the phone." I said, "No, I didn't dismiss him yet. I dismissed my office." He said, "That's the biggest producer of cement on the continent. And by the way, he happens to be the wealthiest man on the continent as well." So we're seeing him tomorrow. Great stuff. So we flew up to Pretoria quite quickly to come and see him. And there he was in my office. Now we'd Googled him a little bit by then, so I was not a bit literate. And I looked at him and I thought, wow, one head, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. That's all right. It's like me. Let's have a conversation. And he was interested in doing business with us. I should have just kept it as simple as that, and I did not, because I was curious. I first told him about my business and how we come from where we are and what we want to do, and it would have sufficed if I hadn't asked him to tell me about himself, which I did. And he did. And he broke me down to size. I mean, he had this sugar business listed for $3.2 billion. He had this flour business for another $2.8 billion. He had the cement business for $13 billion. He had another one for another $1.2 billion. He was busy processing others. And there I was looking for 350 million rands. Long story short, he did participate. He did subscribe for all the shares we were looking for. There was a bit of tension there because now we had 2 days to go before we sent everybody else's money back. And he said, this money will be in your account by Friday. My manager at ABSA was having a roaring time working with us on this because we told him on Friday to expect the money. And he then said, where's the money coming from? And we said to him, the money is coming from Lagos. And he said, you've got to come to the bank now. We've got to close this account because we've given it to a Nigerian guy. And the Nigerians are very notorious for defrauding people. So you've got to come to the bank now and close this this account. Now we're sitting in the office and we said, no, don't worry, these ones are legitimate Nigerians, it'll be fine. By 12 o'clock, the money isn't in the bank. We called them up in Lagos to check where the money is. And they say, we're trying to get through. We're trying to put the money through, but it won't. We phoned the manager again and he says, you guys are still not here. I've closed the bank account. The last time I spoke to you, I closed the bank account. So the money couldn't come in because the account was closed. So we assured him that it's going to be okay. He can open the account. So the money eventually did come through. And that's how Dangote came into our lives to become part of our organization. We then went through the rest of the effect of the Lehman Brothers. Obviously, after that, we had to order long lead items and wait for them to stabilize and then start raising the rest of the money for the plant. We raised 350 in the beginning, and we needed to raise another. We needed to raise up to 3.2 billion. And Dangote also said to us, look, I was going to give you the rest of the money, but look, the world has also changed. I have got other things to invest in, so go ahead and raise money from somewhere else. And we did that for about 2 years. We couldn't come right, so we came back to participate again after 2 years. We were able to put together the cement plant, and because of his presence in it, we were able to get contracts with Sinoma International, which is a Chinese company. We were a bit suspicious of their credibility until he came in. We were very suspicious of the quality of work that they would do. And then we found out that they actually had done about 6 of his plants. And he had specified the plants to be done with Chinese technology, but all the critical components were done from German suppliers. So we used the same kind of methodology that he applied for 6 of his plants that had been running for quite a while. So that was easy to do because he was available. It was also easy to move our plant quite far ahead in the queue because we were working with him. It was also much easier to get the funding, the debt funding from our local banks because we were now working with him. He brought all the equity into the business. He guaranteed the debt for the banks. He provided a standby facility so the project could kickstart. So between 2010 to 2014, everything all in was done, and we produced our first bag of cement in December 2014. I went very quickly through the fundraising process, but that's where most of those lessons come through, because as you're raising capital for that amount of capital at the time for building a cement plant, you need to justify to the market why you think it's necessary. You need to convince the market, the lending and the equity markets, that you can actually complete the plant on time. You can commission it on time. You can produce good quality cement, and you can sell it to a market that's receptive. And we can also manage to permeate the competition's resistance because they've been in the market for a long time. These are the areas where we grappled quite a bit during our 2-year walk on the equity and the debt market. I remember telling a story, my favorite story about the bumblebee, when everyone was telling us it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to build the plant. You're not going to be able to sell cement. There is oversaturation of the market. There's no room for a new player. And my argument has always been that South Africa grows, and it grows at a very incredible rate, not all the time the same way, but it keeps growing. But what I noticed was we still are importing cement at the time, coming out of Pakistan and China. And I said to the guys, if we're still importing, when you're telling me that the market is saturated, so your numbers are not adding up. There is room for us to play. Number one, there is growth, which is not phenomenal, but also there is importation still. If we just replace those imports that are running between 1 million and 1.5 million tons, 1.3 million tons into our borders, then we have already got a capacity to absorb another 1.3 million tons. If the economy grows, or the demand grows at another 700,000 tons, then we have 2 million tons to feed the market in. Now, back to my bumblebee story, where one group of analysts were very convinced this is not a going story, it's not going to happen. The incumbents are just going to crush us. I said to him, you know, I've listened as a scientist, and I've read about the story of a bumblebee, and there's a chapter specifically designed to explain aerodynamically why the bumblebee should not fly, because it's too fat, it's too big, it's too hairy, it's got a very short wingspan, but the bumblebee doesn't speak English. It just lifts off and flies. So I said to them, we're going to lift off and fly, and you're going to watch the bumblebee in the sky. It'll be doing what it's built to do. I think we have an opportunity, in spite of what you're saying. And the team that we put together to evaluate that opportunity was also amazing. We had a company called Capital Hill that worked with us. I haven't spoken about that before. They did all the numbers based on the field that we gave them, about the imports, also the age of the incumbents' plants. Some of the plants were more than 40 years old. They were about to shut down. Because of the boom that happened before, some of the old plants had been demothballed to come back and supply. Just that's how much demand was there in the market. And the analyzers were able to tell us that some of these plants are too tired, they're coughing, they're going to stop. So if we put together a balance of imports coming in, plants that are very old, that are about to be mothballed again, the economy that's growing, not so great, but even if at a minimum rate, and you're bringing in new technology, you've got a place to play. That's very important. Working with a guy like Aliko Dangote is quite an experience. You are in the same room, at the same table, with the richest person on the continent. I must say, the first few times were quite surreal. You didn't know when to oppose the guy. You didn't know when to say, "I don't like what you're saying," because he's the main man. He's very, very astute. He understands business. He's very perceptive. I can remember one time when we were having this big conversation about the size of plant we want to build. And because the market had built into my head the fact that there's overcapacity, you can't be bringing so much capacity into the market. He then said, whilst you're doing this, let's increase the plant's ability to produce more than 5,000 tons per day to 6,000 and possibly 7,000. And my first reaction to him was, why would you want to do that? I mean, we don't want to spend too much capital into a market that's not going to be receiving us. And I still remember the smile he gave me, and he said, you don't understand. It's a cycle, like you said. We don't have to produce 7,000 tons a day. We can produce 6. But one day when there's a need for 7,000, we don't have to build a new plant. We can just tweak this one up, and we make as much money as we would like to make. It was something that just went wow. Because for very little variation, we could actually increase our capacity by another 500,000 tons per annum, which is a lot of capacity, and at the right time, with the right market conditions, a lot of cash. He also, because of his clout, he's able to negotiate quite tough. If there's a discrepancy about a 3.5% or the 3.25, he'll go for a 3.25 and they'll push hard. He's very perceptive. He at the same time, is also a very kind person. He would not deliberately do something that would harm the people he works with. And he also says that. Very religious person. He's a very devout Muslim. He doesn't believe in robbing people to make money. When we moaned about some of the transactions, he'd always say, remember, it's coming from a good place. I'm not going to rob anyone to make money. I'm a very devout Muslim. So he comes with that background and with extensive knowledge of the cement industry. So it's a very, very helpful tool. He works a lot with government, and he believes a lot in helping government to achieve their means. There are times when he would drop prices in Nigeria because government wants to try and stimulate infrastructure and they can't get the right price for cement. Therefore, infrastructure becomes expensive to maintain or to stimulate, and it will just drop prices. I guess being that wealthy, you can afford it. For a small man like myself, it might be a bit difficult, but for him, it's something that in the long term, he says, if I drop them now and they can do all their work, the growth gets stimulated and we can carry on with our lives. We can bring the prices back on, we can make money. In terms of building brand, I think it's very, very important in our lives as a cement producer. Aliko would spend a lot of time. He would, in his group, in Dangote Investment Limited Group, he would engage the brand managers, brand ambassadors for large companies. I mean, I remember once when they'd employed a guy who was a brand manager for Coca-Cola International to come work for Dangote, just to strengthen the brand. So even when we started, the most important thing was to distinguish our brand, to make certain that, number one, it's well recognizable. I don't know if you have seen our product in the stores, but you don't miss them. They're colorful. Our cement looks edible from outside. We wanted to make it so attractive, so gorgeous. When the brand guys were working with us in the beginning, they always used to brag that they're going to be the McDonald's of cement. They're going to come up with all this crazy branding until everybody knows what cement is. And I must say they've been very successful. We did not take the market and customers for granted. We made certain that we work hard to make the market aware of who we are. We also made certain that the brand is associated not only with beautiful bag, but with beautiful quality and also with beautiful service. It was a very deliberate effort. In our 2014 financials, we actually showed how much money we spent as part of the launch and preparation for market entry. It was a substantial amount. The vehicles, the wrap vehicles, the outfits, the radio messages, the communication with clients, the support of clients from a technical point of view. We made sure that all that falls into place. When we sold product to a construction client, we made certain that there is one guy from the office with a technical person who goes to that site and actually assists the construction guys with the technical ability of our product. We made certain that we take advantage of our extensive and excessive new technology in terms of product development, that what we say is what we pack. We used to like saying that what we say our cement will do is what we pack in that bag. There was also a big benefit in the fact that new technology allows you to become consistent with your supply. There's something that the building market doesn't quite understand or didn't understand before we came in, was that if we've got multiple plants, many times what comes out of one plant is not the same as what comes out of the other. And we have this massive benefit that everything that we bag comes out of one big kiln. So it's very, very consistent. So our brand has been very well known, visible, very consistent, and has performed well. The customer service division, we made an effort to be different. Over and above the support we give to clients, we also innovated quite a lot. For example, we were able to send out an SMS to clients, whether it's a bag recipient or a bulk recipient. By bulk, I mean the guys who take a big tanker. These are the guys who mix concretes on the side or do concrete slabs or whatever. When the trucks left the plant, it issues an SMS that goes to client. When it goes via past the weighbridge, it'll issue another SMS to client. When it's within a certain radius of the client, it'll also tell the client, we're around the corner, we're about to arrive. And that we found, it was very receptive, because if you're busy mixing and you're looking for cement, at least you can start. You don't have to wait until the truck is here. It's around the corner, you can start mixing. And over and above that, the technological guys will also show up and say, we're also around the corner if you need help. And we found that innovation, one of the many areas of innovation, very, very fresh in the cement industry. As a listed company, I think we've done extremely well. At the moment, as I speak to you, the market is not looking great on any side. Construction stocks are a little bit down. But if you look where we came from, I think back in 2011, we almost traded at about 190, and on the JSE today we're probably trading around 7. We went a little bit higher than that, but with that was taken off when the markets came down. We are very optimistic. We have all the fundamentals in place. We've now ticked all the boxes that one could be concerned about with a new entrant in the market. The plant is working well like a Rolls Royce. The marketing team is at full speed. The branding team is at full speed. Our market share is acceptable. It actually exceeded our expectation for this time. We've only been in the market for 2 years, and we have actually surpassed our expectations. And we expect to keep on growing from strength to strength as we move forward. I had a debate with one of my friends who now lives outside the country. Made sufficient money and left the country, one, out of disillusionment, and two, out of not wanting to pay as much tax as was due by him. And we had a long conversation over a few drinks. My message to him was, this country has made it possible for me to be where I am today. This country is a great country. It's abound with opportunities, and we just need to be on the lookout for them. None of them is going to come out easy. None of them comes up on a platter. And there are times when the market conditions are difficult. There are times when the climate is not conducive in people's minds, when people don't want to be doing brave business in the country. But it's always a cycle. If you look back at the history of business in any country, it's cyclical. There are lows and highs, and I believe that our country is going through a low right now, and the low will end not very long. There are still people out there. I just came back from the Minds and Money conference in London, and people are talking about what they called Afro-pessimism. And I've heard 3 speakers saying, it doesn't really matter how you feel about certain countries. If they are generously endowed with minerals, your perception is going to have to change if your business depends on those minerals. And I think our country is one of those few countries that are really generously endowed with very good minerals, and it's got good laws. If you look at our country compared to some of the African countries, it's got a good security of tenure rules, where an investor who puts money in this country is almost guaranteed through the legal processes to get his money back. And I think young people should not be discouraged because of difficult times. The greatest of opportunities come out when times are difficult. I always tell people that, in order to have a baby, you got to go through some serious labor pains. Whether you feel them or you do them through a cesarean section, when you wake up, the pains will be there. So beautiful things are born usually out of difficult circumstances. And we are now going through a difficult period, but it's also time for birthing of new opportunities. There's a lot of education that we need to be improving so that people can be ready for the next uptake. But I have no doubt in my mind that this country has boundless opportunities for young people coming up. They just have to believe in themselves, believe in the country like I do, and believe in their own destiny. It's gonna happen. I have no doubt about that.